Ladies and gentlemen, it's Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran, and today we are checking out Minecraft's best players simulating civilization itself. And we are going to answer the age-old question does Minecraft war look like real war? Let's get into it.
Split 50 of Minecraft's best players into 3 different regions to see how they innovate, prosper, and use their unique skills to create the best civilization they can. After 2 weeks of progress, each group will be scored on how successful they grew their civilization and how well they defend and fight during Doomsday, when the walls separating them drop and PvP is enabled. Day 1 started.
Yeah, well, this has the potential to get weird, real weird, actually. Unlike real civilizations, well, this isn't true. So you may think this is sort of an artificial construct, and in some ways it is, right? You have these walls separating these civilizations, and then at some point the walls come down and they can fight. But this is actually not that different from the real world. In the real world, right, for around 10,000 years or so, 10,000 BC, right, you had the Ice Age coming to an end. And what happened during the Ice Age is there was so much ice that human beings could walk from continent to continent. They could literally walk across oceans. And then the Ice Age ended and things, thawed, meaning that suddenly civilizations were trapped on different sides of an ocean. You had civilizations, for example, in the North and South America, right? That included things like the Aztec, Maya, Olmec. You had Eurasia, right? Which had everything from the early Middle Eastern civilizations, the people that built Stonehenge, the pyramids. They were all able to, Romans, Greeks, they were all able to cross-pollinate their ideas, right? You also had civilizations that were also sort of cut off from the larger one. You had some in islands, like in Japan, but most notably in Australia, you had the Aboriginal civilization. So these civilizations all were working, developing, and they had no idea that elsewhere, right, there were other people living, trading, learning, and thriving. But of course, in the 1700s, when the people in the Eurasian continent developed the ability to sail over the oceans, that suddenly the civilizations came in contact to one another. And there was a lot of discovery and a lot of violence. And just like we're seeing here.
Off with Team Blue, who had spawned in the cold region of the map, which consisted of a coral reef ocean surrounded by a taiga and snowy tundra biome. Not too far from them was a village, which they quickly went to and raided with no mercy, and started trapping villagers to eventually begin breeding them for trade. With plenty of fish in the sea and crops from the village to begin farming, the blue team civilization was just getting started. The next team was the green civilization, who controlled the temperate part of the map, which undoubtedly had the most useful resources. From flowers, different wood types to sugarcane, these materials could come in handy for trading with other teams later on. Unlike the blue civilization, these guys had some humble beginnings.
Okay, we got Sammy Uri, the man who's built the most insane redstone invention. He's mining straight down.
Best player behavior? We'll find out. One of the members, Horus, also...
So this is really interesting because, like real civilization and basically any civilization game you've ever played, you know that your resources dictate how successful you are. But sometimes it can backfire. Here's a great example. The Maya, Aztec, and what they call the Teotihuacanos, they had a tremendous advantage in that they had access to a material called obsidian. This is volcanic glass, but it easily forms razor sharp edges with just a little bit of knocking from a stone. And it meant that they were able to produce razor sharp weapons way earlier. The Europeans, in contrast, had to resort to stone weapons until they discovered certain types of metal smithing. And to make things even more complicated, right, different types of metal are not all created equal. So something like a copper sword or a bronze, right, you had a copper sword, which was, or edged weapons, which were extremely soft and struggled to hold their point. Then you discovered bronze, a somewhat harder, more resilient alloy, and then you got things like steel and other types of sort of constructed metals, all of which were progressively better and better. Now, by the 14, 15, 1600s, the metal weapons were actually better than what the Aztecs were using as obsidian, right? They were just harder and more resilient and were better able to be used in combat and hunting. But for thousands of years, they had the better edged weapons because they started with this awesome resource, obsidian.
Also started terraforming a nice little crop farm by a witch hut, which doesn't look like much yet, but with the green region matching the exact style of some of his signature builds, their civilization is going to look nuts. Lastly, the red civilization was so far the most conjoined team yet, working their way into the village together, which they found their only food source to work with. They also had a mesa with some trees nearby, which they immediately went and started planting more of. If life wasn't hard enough already for the red team, they found themselves an intruder from the green civilization on their territory.
Okay, so Parrot here decided that it would be a good idea to somehow get outside the border, break my events, and now he's a green team in red territory. Capital punishment.
I trapped Parrot in a bedrock box to make an embarrassing example of him for exploiting my event.
Capital punishment. You know, I do a little bit of tax fraud, but I never do something like this.
I then suffocated.
Damn, you don't want to admit to tax fraud in a YouTube video, my man. Also, get a good accountant and just do it legit, right? Presumably he's in America where, as you know, rich people don't have to pay taxes. And if you're Minecraft YouTuber big, bruh, you gotta find some loopholes, my friend.
Him with sand and finished him off with a good old swipe. Anyways, each civilization continued to get resources from their villages, terrain, and caves, which led to Blue Team pulling the first of many godlike strategies.
Wait, what is this supposed to be? Is this a chunk? Are they mining out this whole chunk?
Blue Team member Pingu was currently in the process of TNT duping a whole chunk to make a slime farm. This is because slime is a very vital resource to many redstone contraptions, including bomber planes to wipe out
What?
other civilizations on Doomsday. Meanwhile, the green civilization was making some great use of their vast...
Guys, this is the sort of thing that we're talking about. And when we talk about these civilizations, one of the tragedies of this, what's called the Columbian Exchange, and this is primarily between North America and Europe, that exchange when the two sides discovered each other existed, is that the Europeans had better weapons and military organizations. They had to because the Eurasian continent was awash in war basically non-stop at a scale that the North and South American continent never really came close to. But that doesn't mean they weren't more advanced. By all accounts, the Aztecs had flowing water and a ridiculously good public hygiene system. They had a system of irrigation and levees that no European city could come close to. Their ability to avoid disease outbreaks was just tremendous. It was so tremendous that, again, when the Europeans who'd been exposed to just a massive number of plagues and diseases through over thousands of years arrived, the Aztecs' actual great public health and cleanliness culture and technologies was a defect because it made them much more susceptible to European diseases, and there were very few diseases that transferred from the Aztecs to the Europeans that we know of. It's possible, again, that it happened both ways, but that the record just sort of doesn't show it.
Resources to make their base look nice. They also went ahead and set up a pumpkin, cocoa bean, and witch farm, which only they had and could become very useful if they needed to trade. While it seemed like green was starting to develop a monopoly on the farmers markets, the red civilization had begun to make some agricultural moves themselves.
Red biome progress is also looking fire. They are dominating the cactus economy right now.
Whenever a cactus grows on this cactus farm, it'll break off into this funnel system where it either gets put into a double chest or into composters, which can then be used to get unlimited bone meal. Despite their three very different regions, every civilization shared an end portal in the very center of the map. The end dimension would be used as a trading hub for everyone, and the blue team had just gotten enough Eyes of Ender to go there.
Jeez. That is an alpha play by blue. first to get to the end.
Now, even though the blue team entered the end first, the green team decided to rush in and stream snipe the dragon before them, as well as snagging the one and only dragon egg, causing unrest in the blue team. With that, day one had ended, but when I say these pro-civilization growth is going to be exponential, I mean it. Because right on day two, red team members Sloime and Matt Wings built this incredibly fast Enderman farm. When building a tower away from the main end island and manipulating Enderman spawn by loading only those chunks, you can cause them to spawn and pile up inside of this tower where you can kill them easily for a quick 30 levels in less than 3 minutes. What was even more genius,
That is unreal. But when we talk about exponential growth, this is what we're talking about. And it's true in almost every civilization, right? Not only so, there are some civilizations that are stagnant or recursive. Recursive is a term in sociology for when you add one more person to your population, they only improve productivity enough for you to add one person's worth of food, i.e., you have a civilization where each person is growing their own food. An example of this might be an agrarian, like rice growing village, right? In which the population increases, but it does so logarithmically, it does so linearly. And in contrast, when you achieve a certain level of technology, say you get access to a plow or crop rotation or other technological or infrastructure type improvements, say the ability to trade with other other efficient regions, which you end up with is a exponential growth curve, where if you add one more worker, that worker is able to produce enough food for 5, 6, 7, 10 people, right? In our modern civilization, that number of agricultural workers produces something like hundreds of people's worth of food. That's what enables a civilization to develop specialists. So you could, for example, if you have the technology to grow for one additional farmer to produce 10 people's worth of food, then you could start to see specialists. And these are people who can, say, administrate an empire, like you saw in Egypt, right? Or Mesopotamia. You might have people who could be full-time soldiers who protect or expand your territories. You can have an entire governing structure. You can even have specialists like priests or metal workers or artisans, right? But the key is that you have to have enough technology. And technology isn't just computers or plowshares. It can be systems of organization. It can be a better way to store grain. It can be just a better way to decide who has to farm when, a method of sharing or distributing your food. Anything can be technology. Anything that improves your life can be considered technology. And when you have that level of technology where one new farmer can feed several more people, that's when you start to have real exponential civilizational growth.
of this was that Pi, who was also...
So that's like what these Enderman farms are. That's what these cactus farms are. They are technological innovations that enable one additional person, or in this case, one person building out these technologies allows several people to focus on other tasks.
On the red team had made the bridge outwards to it out of black glass panes, so none of the other civilizations would be able to see it. Eventually, the blue team would find it though. As we can see, Clown Pierce here used it to get fully enchanted netherite armor along with a few other team members. Besides perhaps now being the most geared and powerful civilization on the server, blue team was now the first to complete a fully functional slime farm which was working around the clock. Blue and red weren't the only civilizations working their way up in the world though, because the green civilization was absolutely flourishing.
Yeah, check it out. Aztec style pyramid. Seems crazy, but you're like, wow, why did they do that exact Aztec style pyramid? It may be a shout out to the actual Aztecs, but it could also be a simple reality that if you want to very efficiently build a tall structure that's stable and won't fall, in the real world, you have to make it this style of pyramid. It's very easy to construct and it's very stable, right? I mean, look, if you basically were to take a big truck full of dirt and dump it on the ground, this is the basic shape of mound that it would fall into. So by using blocks, you can build this very stable structure.
Ooh, Okay, what is going on here?
Maybe it was their humble beginnings gathering food, or their unique nature surrounding them. Things were for sure coming together. Not only did they have this very efficient slime farm, but they also had this overpowered iron farm.
Oh my gosh, look at that. That is brutal. Oh, there it goes. There's Bruno.
By placing these villagers in each corner of the sky platform with a pillager in the middle, the game gets confused and spawns an iron golem to help save the villager. The iron golem will then immediately fall to its death, where its iron drops will be collected by the player. The red civilization had also built an iron farm like this so they could automate such an item, as well as making a solid slime farm of their own.
But who really cares?
That is bananas, first off. But second, it's exactly what you would expect, right? People innovate technologically to solve the problems that they're faced with, right? And this is true in a civilizational level, but also in our own lives. Look at how many people evolve different skills over generations, right? In our grandparents' generation, doing things like, or in your, maybe if my younger audience, great grandparents' generation, things like being able to repair your own clothing, being able to make your own salt, being able, or excuse me, soap, being able to slaughter and prepare farm food, like how to prepare a chicken for eating. Those were essential life skills to survive in the world of the Great Depression. But in our parents' generation, or your grandparents' generation, things like maintaining your own car, right? Things like balancing a checkbook or coming up with a budget and sticking to it. Those were absolutely essential skills. Now, right? Nowadays, what are the essential skills that we have to evolve? What are the problems in our lives that we have to understand? How to keep track of all your passwords to log in. This would be a great chance for me to have a sponsor, and I don't. I'd be like, secure yourself with NordVPN. But what you do have, nope, no sponsor, sorry. Get at me VPN sponsors. I think I actually already have one with Nord, so not yet. But the point is that nowadays we have problems like how to manage all your passwords, you still need to get to a budget and stick to it, but how to make sure you don't accidentally sign up for services you're never going to cancel, right? How to make sure you're, how to apply for a job and register for health insurance, right? These are the sort of things that people joke is adulting, but these are the skills that we have to evolve. And the next generation, they're going to have totally different skills for some things, and they're going to look at some of the things that we consider essential skills as being completely superfluous, right? How, in our parents' generation, they said, well, you have to know how to go to the bank and talk to the teller. And now it's like, I don't know if my bank physically has branches anywhere.
Here's about some silly slime.
So the point is that every civilization has different circumstances, and they're evolving their different solutions, their essential solutions in response to this environment that they're in. The things they don't have, they have to find the most innovative solutions for.
Farm when Pi from the red team built this genius automatic sheep shearing farm. By manipulating the sheep's AI pathfinding abilities with this maze, you can shear one of the sheep, who will then work its way all the way back up to the top of the maze, and by the time it gets back down to you, it's ready to be sheared again. Moving back to the blue civilization, business was absolutely thriving. Not only did blue have villagers in holes, but also in the nether. Let's go! Another thing blue was working towards was collecting obsidian, and I kid you not, when I entered the end to check up on Clown Pierce, my man was mining an entire obsidian monolith. With this obsidian, he built a bunch of giant nether portals underground, where he can farm gold from piglins who trap themselves after entering. He said that he was collecting this gold to make golden apples, which would give him a huge advantage in combat on Doomsday. While Clown Pierce was farming gold, Pingu was going nuts in the nether, pushing his redstone to the test and automating netherite.
Oh, there you go. Yo, it worked.
Yo.
Oh my gosh, we got a 3 vein right here.
Back in the overworld, the green civilization had outdone themselves again, because on the third day they completely transformed their base.
Yo, what? Bro, this is sick.
No way. Yo! By using their unique jungle landscape, the green team had terraformed an entire river with some houses next to it, started their main cave base with this neat little redstone door, as well as some very unique farms. Nah, don't tell me this is a sheep freaking... Oh no, it's an automatic sheep dispenser. Kinda disappointed. And of course, just like
Automatic sheep dispenser. Craziness.
any upcoming world superpower, Green also went ahead and killed off an entire forest and industrialized it with stone. This was all for a good cause though, don't worry, as they needed this flat terrain to use their raid farm, which proved to be extremely profitable. By manipulating the game with this tall villager machine in the sky, you can cause a raid to happen whenever and wherever you want. When the raid starts, the pillagers will spawn on this floating ice platform up above, which they will then fall into the death chamber where the player is waiting to kill them. This is easily one of the most economically efficient farms in the entire game, since it produces so many emeralds as well as giving you access to dozens of different loot drops. With each civilization now getting a solid grasp on materials, they all started gearing up and building defenses for Doomsday. Well, at least most of them. A few of the blue team members thought it would be funny to try and break through the giant bedrock wall. Nah, no way. Little did I know, not too long after this, they would successfully break through with this piston TNT method and pull a lick on the red team. 3 cactuses. Absolutely barbaric. Whilst blue and
I don't know what pull a lick means. I'm too millennial to know what this Gen Z shit is. And I don't know if 3 cactuses, if he's joking that they don't really have an impact on anything and it's just sort of a troll. Or if it really does make a difference. But in the real world, this is actually not an uncommon move. This is sometimes what's called signaling or capabilities demonstration. And oftentimes when you have countries who, for example, are having high levels of tension, like the US and Soviet Union in the Cold War, they will do what's called signaling. And signaling is not actively harming your enemy in a overt or obvious way, in a way that's going to actually hurt them. You sort of symbolically damage them. A good example would be when US fighter jets will patrol over the open ocean. Oftentimes Russian fighter jets will fly dangerously close to them as a way of the Russians saying, hey, we see you and our fighter jets are prepared to meet yours if necessary. And they don't need to say it, they show it by literally having the jets meet each other. And because they're flying so close, the message is clear that this is not a respectful friendship. Again, you might have something very different if it was, say, the US and an ally like Japan or Australia. If their fighter jets were to go out, meet them a safe, appropriate distance, it would be clear signaling that this is, hey, these are 2 friends, 2 allies flying together. Pleasure to see you, right? But because it's dangerously close and it's dangerously unexpected, the message from the opposing aircraft is very clear that this is a threat and it's unwelcome.
and red tension stood high over the cactus thieves, green was once again keeping to themselves, strategizing for when the walls dropped on Doomsday.
This is what will be the bunker. So when the fighting starts, we're gonna be all going in here. So we're gonna be kind of doing like guerrilla warfare where we're just staying in our own territory. And we're gonna have a lot of traps set up.
Just like the genius military general Sun Tzu, Quentin made a plan of setting up a whole decoy town outside of their main bunker in the mountain, with each house being rigged with several tons of explosive traps ready to be set off for when the enemy civilizations invaded. A successful civilization must have a smart war tactic, but green wasn't the only ones.
So this is interesting. So basically what we're talking about here is a IED, an improvised explosive device. And in the Iraq War, these were very common. They would rig entire houses, doorways, and other things to explode. Oftentimes, this was a favorite insurgent tactic to catch American forces who would be entering and trying to clear the house of insurgents. So their tactic might be to fire on American troops from the house, in place the final trap, retreat from the house, and then when American soldiers entered, they would have to go either incredibly slowly in order to clear the traps, giving the insurgents time to escape, or they would go too quickly and run into the traps, potentially wounding or killing soldiers.
Pondering about the future battle.
Check this one, check this chest.
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah.
dang. Over the past 2 days, Phelps from the red team had been mining out several of the end monoliths for obsidian, which he then planned to use to build a gigantic mega obsidian defense to keep intruders out. Each civilization continued to work on their bases and gear up for the eventual Doomsday by setting up different farms like sea kelp, carpet, cobblestone, as well as more slime farms. They even went ahead and flooded out the entire end island to speed up production on the community enderman farm. And now, it was at this moment the tides had changed, because using all of these beginner farms, they could get down to the real business. I've just TP'd to blue team, and they currently have a whole tunnel bore system ready to go to get stacked on netherite. Just killed it in. Bro, no way! Ingu and Spay would continue building onto this tunnel bore till netherite was absolutely no problem for the blue civilization. Angard from the green civilization also went brazy by building this insane automatic tree farm. Oh my gosh, that is fast. Using this crazy redstone contraption, green team will basically never have to mine trees again, as this farm can gather over 2,000 trees an hour automatically. The red civilization had also went and made a big move.
And 3 days later, they've mined 7 whole chunks.
Not only did Red now have a monopoly on the slime markets, but they also went ahead and made a farm I had never seen before. What the hell, bruh? Nah, what is this up here? A wandering trader farm? Normally, I'd commit horrible crimes upon wandering trader, but Nicoiler from the red team was using this giant sky platform to get them to spawn as much as possible to get trades like coral, which they can't actually get in their region without trading with blue. Green team had also been trying to be more self-sufficient because they went ahead and got a huge bag with their new pigmen and raid farm.
So this is actually doing what sometimes called industrial security or strategic resource security. And this is the idea that any country looks at what things are essential to its defense and tries to avoid sourcing those things from their enemies. And this can be in, for example, World War I, Germany and the Axis, they realized that they would struggle to get oil, right? Oil and petroleum products, because of how isolated they were from other major petroleum producing areas. The result was that their army, this is actually World War II. World War I was different explosive components, but they had the same problem. But World War II, that was one of the reasons that the Germans chose to invade Russia, the Soviet Union. They were pushing for oil fields because they instead of having oil organically, right? Their military used a lot of horses, so much so that when the German army surrendered to American forces, they were shocked that the Americans were transporting their supplies with motor vehicles, and how many of their troops were riding in the back of trucks. Using that much gasoline would have shocked a German military unit, simply because gasoline was a tightly controlled commodity reserved for things like tanks and other combat vehicles. So this idea that you look at what you need to fight a war and you try your best not to depend on your enemies for it is a principle that dates back at least a century.
Holy... Alright, Jeff Bezos, chill. Not only was Green Team possibly the richest civilization now, the inside of their bunker base was looking splendid. And on top of all that, they even had a to-do list board in the middle of their base as they were trying to stay organized and on top of things. Now, although Blue Team might have not been the richest civilization on the server anymore, they had been making some nice houses and even invited some new friends to their party. Damn, he got the fresh kicks though. What are you doing on the roof, bruh? The door down there. Why they trap my mans like that? Free Jerome, bro. What the? Wait, what? Why didn't I know about this party? Wait a sec. Red was having a party and didn't invite me either?
It seems like you have some children now.
It seems so, yeah. I was asking if we can keep them.
What the? They even had half-naked men at the party. Alright, so up until now, most of the players had been focusing on auto farms, but on the 8th day, you could really see some of the pro builders coming into play. Like the blue team, who seemed to be going for a more medieval type feel with stone walls to keep any enemies out. But compared to green's home improvements, blue's what's chump chain? Bruh, yo, look at this dude, bro. This looks actually insane. Quentin from the green team had completely transformed this entire mountain into their main base centerpiece. Their base had this cool Aztec feel, and bruh, unless their intruder is this dude right here, there's no way anyone's climbing that.
So I'm going to point something out here. They talk about the Aztec feel, and like we talked about, the Aztecs relied a lot on this leveled construction sort of method for their temples, at least. And that was sort of the core of their city. They wouldn't have had this circular dome. This was characteristic more of the earliest one that I can think of off the top of my head is the Hagia Sophia, the cathedral, later mosque in Constantinople.
Around the same time, Red had done some terraforming and also began some seriously nuts work on their base. Dude, they built a pyramid! Oh my gosh.
I mean, I give them credit aesthetically. That's a perfect, like, complement to the environment of the desert, right? That's the icon desert construction.
When did this happen? This literally happened overnight. Now, red and green would continue to work on their civilization infrastructure, but blue started steering away from their building and focusing on other projects. Hold up, they're building a canal over here. Yo, what? Led by A1306, he planned to mine out this entire perimeter by using a massive array of TNT bomber planes. Honestly, I'm not sure why. Maybe it was to assert dominance on the other civilizations, or to do something bigger than I can think of. After a while,
grand engineering projects are also something that have a large civilizational history, right? Now, there's some projects that are done just for religious reasons. Those are the most common. So, for example, the Great Pyramids of Giza were a tomb for the pharaoh, who, remember, was also considered a living god. The Aztec Pyramid of the Sun, for example. No, Teotihuacan Pyramid of the Sun. No? Yeah. Let me know in the comments which one has the Pyramid of the Sun. Anyway, that pyramid was also constructed for religious ceremonies. Nowadays, you're more likely to see, instead of religious sites, you will see, for example, grand construction projects that have utility. The Hoover Dam is a great example. One of the world's largest hydroelectric dams was built not only as a sort of civilizational monument, but it's a massive hydroelectric project that even to this day provides Las Vegas, the city of Las Vegas, with tremendous low cost and environmentally sustainable power. You are more likely to see those sort of things. You have like the Aswan Dam is another good example. Even large stadiums, large strip mines. These are it's easier to justify these projects that have some sort of productive element because the projects will pay for themselves eventually. In contrast to a large religious site or a giant statue of yourself, those will not necessarily pay for themselves. But some religious sites if they're large enough, become actual like tourist destinations and do actually garner some money.
Of being in the overworld, I finally went to go see what the best players were doing in the nether again. Holy bruh, what is this thing? What in the world? Now, for the next following 3 days up until Doomsday, each team went hard at work to become the most developed, successful, and powerful civilization they possibly could. And when I tell you these are the best players out there, I mean it, because this is what Red's region looked like at the start, and here is what it looks like now. Oh my gosh.
This is crazy.
Going along with their desert region theme, the Red civilization built this massive pyramid where the main structure stores all of their items in different farms. The most notable being countless auto food farms, nether tree farm, auto obsidian farms, among many others. They even had houses and other buildings outside for its inhabitants, but the craziest part of their civilization had to be their military. Starting off, Pi and Phelps transported an entire ghast from the nether into the shooting chamber in the sky, where they can harness its fireballs to punch onto intruders down below. They also had engineered several TNT flying machines on every inch of the bedrock walls, which will automatically detect when the bedrock disappears and will immediately start raining havoc on the other civilizations. With a thriving economy, great infrastructure, and even a Sipover Sphinx religion with some very built-to-scale cheeks, the Red civilization was looking like a solid investment. Now let's go check out.
That is sick. The automated defense systems are pretty incredible. Now, to say that that level of automation doesn't exist is of course untrue. We just talked about traps and mines. Unfortunately, in the real world, mines can be really effective. They are usually deployed and set off when a thing of appropriate size touches them. Anti-tank mines, for example, can only be set off by heavy armored vehicles driving over them. Anti-personnel mines, though, can be set off by a person or fairly large animal stepping on them or triggering them. And they are especially vicious because those mines often are laid in an area not so much to stop the enemy or to actually kill the enemy, but they are deployed to do what's called canalize the enemy. That is, force them to travel a certain path. Like mines to the left of you, mines to the right, you know the enemy is going to walk down the road in the center. And that can make it easy to target them, and you know exactly where they're going to be. So if you have this sort of automated TNT dispenser creating a waterfall of explosive weapons, then you know that your enemy is going to try to go around it. And this will make it easy, or they're going to be stopped and have to figure out a way to deal with it. That means you know where the enemy will be, and you should use that to attack them. But you don't really see many weapons like that nowadays because they don't discriminate, right? If there were civilians and combatants, you try not to kill civilians, you only try to kill the enemy. And the only way to do that reliably is to have a human being deploy a weapon. So these sort of cascading or automatic weapons aren't really widely used. In the 80s, I think there was a global landmine treaty.
That's what the Blue civilization accomplished. Holy bro, they finished it. They finished. Oh! After days of running their world eater, the Blue civilization had finally finished their gigantic hole. I didn't do that, they did, but subscribe anyway. They also had a pretty solid tree farm built by Dual Boy, a raid farm, and once again Clown Pierce's gold farm using these giant nether portals. Military-wise, they had a few TNT bombers lined up and ready to go, as well as this really interesting stationary cannon which fires duped TNT in a spread, most likely to defend against incoming missiles.
A1 through 6, you spent so much time on that perimeter. What's your final words?
Subscribe to Sipover, and if you don't, I'll do that on your house.
Perhaps Blue's pride of creating this giant perimeter distracted them from prospering economically and imperialistically. But let's go check up on how crazy Green had made their civilization. Yo!
Nah, it looks so good in the jungle.
Using their jungly region, they made an absolutely insane looking base with a giant cathedral as their centerpiece, a village on the outside, and a furnished cave system housing their different farms like their auto tree farm and kelp farm. Although maybe not as economically developed as the Red civilization, Green Team had put together an unbelievable war strategy that I would have never expected. First of all, leading into their cathedral was a tunnel trap made by Purple Dragon Nuke where once someone walked into it, it would trigger, dropping them into an unescapable obsidian pit where dozens of witches are waiting to kill them. Then, all the way behind their civilization, Cades had engineered an entire lineup of sophisticated TNT bomber planes that would fly up but only start dropping TNT once they had actually reached the other civilization. And now, possibly the craziest Minecraft thing I've ever seen, Angarn, Quinton, and Grizz had literally made an immortality machine. All the way underground in this bunker they dug out, they had an Ender Pearl stasis chamber that could teleport them back if they ever found themselves in danger. Nothing crazy, but by using this update suppressor, the stasis chamber will automatically detect when their inventory runs out of totems and will immediately teleport them back before death. The perfect mix of offense, defense, and deception. Now let's drop the walls between them and watch each civilization filled with the world's best PvPers, redstoners, and builders fight to the death. There it goes! Oh my god!
This is wild.
As soon as the walls dropped, Green and Blue civilizations were immediately bombarded with Red's countless TNT bombers. And while Blue's stationary TNT cannon stopped some of them, Green had an absolute god strat to defending their homeland. Yo, look at this dude up here. Dude, this is literally World War III right now.
Okay, this is actually a completely solid recreation of World War II style anti-aircraft weapons, right? You had aircraft that have to fly on a straight, steady pattern when doing bombing runs. In World War II, in the real world, this was because of the way the bomb sights worked. They couldn't calculate where a bomb was going to go when a plane was flying evasively. So they had to fly straight and steady, which meant that if you had anti-aircraft guns, the flight path of the planes was discernible enough that you could try to put rounds into those planes. And you would do so from the ground, just like what we're seeing here. These turrets from the ground launching fire up at the bombers, an exact reflection of the World War II era strategy.
Similar to how Pi was shooting gas fireballs from up above, Green Team members transported fireballs into these small watchtowers to throw out any oncoming TNT dupers from Red to destroy them before they exploded their base. This worked incredibly well, causing only minor damage from Red, but Blue's base on the other hand... Wait, oh, wow, Blue really is getting hit hard by these flying machines right now. Blue unfortunately got dunked on by Red's TNT dupers, and the ones that they set up prior got stopped early by Red blocking them off. It was also at this time Green's smart artillery from the back of their base was finally reaching the other civilization. But even with 2 whole weeks, they made the moment of forgetting to actually load the bombers themselves. With all the Redstone artillery having run its destructive course, each civilization moved in to attack each other with hand-to-hand combat.
This is also illustrative of World War I perfectly. You would do what's called preparatory fires, or use artillery or aircraft bombardment to prepare the battlefield, right? To get your enemy's head down, and then as soon as it ended, your ground forces pushed in to seize the territory.
Oh my god, there's a whole war breaking out over here. Oh my god. Most of the fighting was taking place in the center of the map, and this is where we would really start to see some of the weak get weeded out. Oh damn!
Ooh! That was a massacre.
While some Redstone players and builders like Pi and Nicoiler provided aerial support with fireballs, most of them were relying on their PvPers to protect them and their civilization. Oh, rip. Oh, he just did the thing! And just like that, Dark Phoenix from the Green Team was immediately teleported safely away from Clown Pierce once they had no more totems in their inventory. This strategy itself was game-changing for Green, because as Blue and Red civilization numbers slowly dwindled due to combat, they maintained almost all of their players. This guy,
Right, and this is a great illustration where the individual skill levels have been greater for another civilization, but because they had a technological advantage, because they were able to combine decent levels of soldier skill with a high level of technology, that became a decisive advantage over time, right? You have to think about warfare as not sometimes is the decisive battle. The idea that two sides clash, one side wins, and they have won the war by crippling their enemy. But what's more common in modern warfare is that it's attritional. It's thousands, hundreds of clashes, small clashes, and tiny differences. If one side is 1% better, right, you have to think, then they're going to clash. If 100 people clash, one side's 1% better, it will have, let's say, 1% fewer losses. It'll take, one loss to their opponent. They'll lose, let's say, 98 people, and their opponent will lose 100. And on the next clash, that difference is going to get exaggerated more. The other side will be down to 97, you're down to 99, repeat over 100 clashes, and suddenly you realize that your side has, 60 plus people remaining, and the other side has just 30.
whole team is
or fewer.
fighting for their lives, and he's chilling on his Eiffel Tower.
You gotta respect that.
Not only was Green keeping their players alive, but they had also just caught Frankie, one of Blue's best PvPers, in their witch trap. Oh my god, they got one guy. This is actually brutal. He's block glitched. Oh my god, he got out. Somehow Frankie had managed to escape Green's defense trap alive, which just goes to show how insane these guys are. Now with about 18 total.
That is crazy. What I will say is it's proof that, again, in warfare, there's this idea that you can be like an elite super trooper who's unkillable. That's a movie meme. People, like, as we saw, yes, Frankie's really good, but ultimately that trap caught him just like it would catch anyone else.
Little players left. The world borders started to close in on the civilizations, which led to one of Red's most valued players to die.
Oh no, Pi just died.
No! Hi, you put up a good fight, man.
Yeah, I'm not really into PvP, so I was just trying to survive.
We salute you.
With the red team hanging on by a thread to survive, the green team still outnumbered everyone else and was now targeting blue. Oh, they're all on Frankie. This is big. He's literally getting 1v7 right now. The borders had now completely shrunk, leaving blue and green to mosh pit it out, while the last red team members like KBDT took refuge in holes underground. Oh my god. Come on, bro. You're supposed to be the best Minecraft player. He must be a dang redstoner.
Oh, 366 died. Ooh.
That left Frankie from the blue team to take on 9 green members all alone. Oh my god, pit fight, pit fight, pit fight.
No, he escaped. This dude's crazy at escaping.
Frankie's cracked. Just like how we escaped the witch trap earlier, Frankie was moving like a tank until his luck finally ran out.
Ooh. He just got dropped.
No way.
Yeah, moving like a tank is actually not a compliment. Tanks are not that maneuverable. But the ability of, again, individual soldiers, it actually gets harder to hunt smaller units because they become more maneuverable. But when you're a small unit, of course, you can't deal as much damage and you don't have an economy of scale. A 1,000-person unit can dedicate 10 people to doing nothing but finding food or finding fuel or finding ammunition. A 10-person unit, right? They can't spare anyone often to dedicate themselves just to finding fuel or food or logistics. So this sort of stuff, it can get harder to track down the last person, but there was almost no chance that Frankie was going to mount meaningful offense against 10 people.
Hey, that left KBDT to clutch up. Never mind. Now McYum and I will score which civilization was the best overall, and we'll also get a $3,000 prize. Starting off, the blue team got a total score of 11 out of 20. The red team went ahead and snagged a 16 out of 20, which only left green. I would say green was solid. I'm gonna give them a 4.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking 4 too. Honestly, I gotta give him a 5 for the Doomsday. I'm not gonna lie.
I would give them a 5, but their TNT dupers didn't work. I'm gonna give them a 4. And that means that green caught the dub as Minecraft's greatest civilization. This video took so long.
That was, okay, guys, that was pretty sick, honestly. I hope you guys learned something about civilizations, about the way real combat, real nations go to war, and just how similar the principles are in Minecraft, right? Whether you're a civilization in Minecraft, a civilization in the game Civilization, or a civilization literally in Civilization, in our real world here, the principles of surviving and thriving are always going to remain the same. Guys, thank you so much for joining me. If you want to access some exclusive content, check out the Patreon. And if you want my YouTube course that covers everything from the very basics of using YouTube all the way to creating clickable titles, super thumbnails, editing that people can't look away from. Plus, there's a money-back guarantee. If you don't earn the tuition back in 6 months, then, of course, yeah, I give you the tuition back. So there's no risk. Check out the link in the description. I'll see you in the next one.